There is a war happening right now that you cannot see. It is not fought with weapons. It is not fought with armies. It is fought with words. And every single day, you are losing battles you did not even know you entered. That person who disagreed with you last week. That colleague who challenged your idea in the meeting. That family member who dismissed your opinion at dinner. You thought you won because you made the better point. You thought you won because logic was on your side. But here is the truth that will disturb you. The moment you argued, you already lost. The moment you opened your mouth to prove you were right, you handed them a victory they did not earn. And they walked away feeling exactly what you wanted to feel. Superior. This is the secret that powerful people have guarded for centuries. This is the trick that Machiavelli encoded into his writings for those with eyes to see. And today, I am going to reveal it to you completely. Not the watered-down version they teach in schools. Not the sanitized interpretation that makes philosophers comfortable. The real method. The dangerous one. The one that will change how you interact with every human being for the rest of your life. Now, before we dive deeper into this journey, I need your help. My ex-girlfriend said I am a failure and can never be successful speaking the truth on YouTube about how the world operates. She said nobody will subscribe to a failure's channel. Please subscribe now. Let us prove her wrong. It will be a shame if what she said happens. Please help this young man gain his confidence back. And please tell me where you are watching from right now. Drop your location in the comments because I would love to know where my amazing viewers are tuning in from and to prove to her that people around the world now watch my channel. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Think about the last argument you won. Really won. You had the facts. You had the logic. You dismantled their position piece by piece until they had nothing left to say. Remember how that felt. That surge of triumph. That intellectual satisfaction. Now think about what happened next. Did they change their mind? Did they come to you later and say you were right and they were wrong? Did they suddenly respect you more? Or did something else happen? Something you probably tried to ignore. They grew cold. They became distant. They started avoiding conversations with you. They found ways to undermine you when you were not looking. They remembered. Not your brilliant arguments. Not your flawless logic. They remembered how you made them feel. Small, defeated, humiliated, and they never forgave you for it. This is the trap that intelligent people fall into every single day. They think that being right is the same as winning. But Machiavelli understood something far more sophisticated. In the game of power and influence, being right is often the fastest way to lose. Let that sink in for a moment. Everything you have been taught about arguments is wrong. Every debate class. Every lesson about standing your ground. Every piece of advice about defending your position. All of it has been teaching you how to lose while feeling like you won. And the people who understood this. The advisors to kings. The power brokers behind thrones. The silent architects of history. They have been using your need to be right against you for centuries. Here is what Machiavelli observed in the courts of Renaissance Italy. The loudest voices in the room were never the most powerful. The men who argued passionately for their positions were never the ones who actually controlled outcomes. Instead, power flowed toward the silent ones. The ones who listened more than they spoke. The ones who let others exhaust themselves in debate while they watched and calculated. The ones who understood that every argument is a performance, and the audience that matters most is not the person you are arguing with but everyone else watching. Think about that. When you argue with someone, you think it is a two-person game. You versus them. Point versus counterpoint. But Machiavelli saw the larger board. He saw that arguments are theater. And in theater, the actor who loses control of their emotions loses control of the audience. I want you to type in the comments right now, "I refuse to argue with fools." This is your first declaration of power. This is you announcing to the universe that you are ready to operate on a different level. Type it now. I refuse to argue with fools. Let me see how many of you are truly ready for this transformation. Let me tell you a story that will illustrate exactly what I mean. In 1502, Cesare Borgia, the man Machiavelli studied more closely than any other, found himself facing a dangerous situation. Several of his commanders had secretly conspired against him. They had met in a place called La Magione and formed an alliance to destroy him. Word reached Cesare about this betrayal. Now think about what most people would do. Most people would rage. Most people would immediately confront the traitors. Most people would argue and threaten and demand loyalty. Most people would try to prove they were the rightful leader and the conspirators were wrong. But Cesare did something that confused everyone. He smiled. He sent friendly letters to the conspirators. He pretended he knew nothing. He invited them to negotiations. He listened to their concerns with patience and understanding. He made them feel heard. He made them feel respected. He never once argued about who was right or wrong. His advisors were baffled. His enemies were suspicious but also relieved. Maybe Cesare was weak. Maybe he could be manipulated. Maybe the conspiracy would succeed after all. And then Cesare invited them to a meeting in a town called Sinigaglia. The conspirators came, feeling confident. Feeling like they had won the argument without even having it. Feeling like Cesari's silence meant submission. They were strangled that night. Now I am not telling you to strangle anyone, but I am telling you to understand what Cesare understood. The moment you argue, you reveal your position. The moment you argue, you show your cards. The moment you argue, you give your opponent information they can use against you. But when you remain silent, when you listen, when you nod and seem to agree, you become invisible. And invisible enemies are the most dangerous enemies of all. Wait, did you catch what just happened in that story? Cesari's conspirators thought his silence was weakness. They thought they had won. They walked right into their own destruction because they could not read what his silence actually meant. This is what happens when you master the art of not arguing. People consistently underestimate you. They think your calm means you have no power. They think your agreement means you have surrendered. And by the time they realize their mistake, it is far too late. Lesson 1. The first principle of never arguing is understanding what an argument actually is. Most people think an argument is a search for truth. Two people with different views come together, exchange ideas, and the best idea wins. This is a fantasy. This is what arguments would be if humans were robots. But humans are not robots. Humans are emotional creatures who use logic as decoration. The real purpose of an argument is not to find truth. The real purpose is to establish dominance. Think about it. When someone challenges your idea, what do you feel? You feel threatened. Your heart rate increases. Your body prepares for battle. Your ego activates defense mechanisms. All of this happens before a single logical thought enters your mind. And the same thing is happening in the other person. So you have two people, both in defensive mode, both feeling threatened, both trying to establish dominance over the other. And you expect truth to emerge from this. You expect rational outcomes. You expect changed minds. The only thing that emerges from arguments is resentment. The only thing that gets established is who is more verbally aggressive. The only thing that changes is the relationship, and it always changes for the worse. This is why Machiavelli wrote that a prudent man should always enter the path taken by great men and imitate those who have been most excellent. And the most excellent men in history understood that arguing is for amateurs. When Machiavelli observed the powerful, he did not see them winning arguments. He saw them avoiding arguments entirely. He saw them using different tools. Silence, questions, redirection, strategic agreement, delayed action. These are the weapons of those who actually win. Arguments are the weapons of those who only feel like they are winning. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. Who taught you that you need to defend your position? Who told you that letting a wrong statement go unchallenged means you are weak? Who convinced you that you have a duty to correct every person who is mistaken? I will tell you who. People who do not understand power. People who confuse noise with influence. People who have been losing their whole lives while thinking they were winning. The truly powerful do not feel the need to correct everyone. The truly powerful are comfortable letting others be wrong. Because the truly powerful understand that another person's incorrect belief is not a threat to their identity. Only people with fragile egos need to win every argument. Only people who are unsure of themselves need constant external validation that they are right. Type in the comments right now, "My silence is my power." Let me see you claim this truth. Let me see you commit to this principle. Because what I am about to reveal next is going to challenge everything you think you know about human interaction. Lesson 2. The second principle is even more disturbing. When you argue with someone, you are not just wasting time. You are actively making an enemy. And not just any enemy. An enemy who believes they are justified. This is the most dangerous kind of enemy to have. Let me explain the psychology. When you argue with someone and prove them wrong, their brain does not think, "Oh, I was wrong and now I see the truth." That is not how human brains work. Instead, their brain thinks, "I am under attack and I must defend myself." And when you finally defeat them with your brilliant logic, their brain does not think, "I have been corrected and I am grateful." Their brain thinks, "I have been humiliated and I will not forget this." You have not changed their mind. You have made them your enemy. And this enemy will look for every opportunity to prove you wrong in the future. They will actively hope for your failure. They will secretly celebrate your mistakes. They will tell others about how arrogant you are. All because you needed to be right in a conversation that ultimately meant nothing. Machiavelli warned that men ought either to be well treated or crushed. Because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, but of more serious ones they cannot. What does this mean for arguments? It means if you are going to argue with someone, you better be prepared to completely destroy them. Not just defeat them. Annihilate them. Remove them from the board entirely. Because anything less creates an enemy who will wait and plan and strike when you are vulnerable. But how often is an argument worth that level of commitment? How often is proving you are right worth making a permanent enemy? Almost never. Which is why the wisest strategy is to not argue at all. Here is something that will make you uncomfortable. Every argument you have ever won has cost you something. Maybe it was a friendship that became slightly colder. Maybe it was a colleague who stopped sharing information with you. Maybe it was a family member who now keeps you at a distance. Maybe it was an opportunity that disappeared because someone remembered how you made them feel. You cannot see these costs directly. There is no bill that arrives in the mail saying you won an argument, so now you lose this relationship. But the costs are real. They accumulate. And over years, the person who needs to win every argument finds themselves surrounded by people who tolerate them at best and despise them at worst. Meanwhile, the person who mastered the art of not arguing finds themselves surrounded by allies, by opportunities, by people who feel comfortable and respected in their presence. This is not a coincidence. This is cause and effect. I need to pause here and say something directly to those of you who are still watching. You are different. You are not like the masses who click away when they hear something that challenges them. You are here because you want real power, not the illusion of power. You are here because you sense that there is a deeper game being played, and you want to learn the rules. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to this channel right now. We are building something here. A community of people who see beyond the obvious. A group of individuals who understand that true influence operates in the shadows. Join us. You belong here. Lesson 3. The third principle will show you why arguments are fundamentally impossible to win. Here is the hidden structure of every argument. Both people believe they are right. If either person did not believe they were right, there would be no argument. Just agreement. So you have two people, both believing they are right, trying to make the other person believe they are wrong. But here is the problem. Their belief that they are right is not based on logic. It is based on their identity, their experiences, their values, their emotional investment in their position. When you try to change their mind, you are not attacking an idea. You are attacking who they are. And people will fight to the death to protect who they are. Not because they are stupid, not because they are stubborn, but because their identity is the most precious thing they have. It is the foundation of their psychological survival. So when you argue with someone, you are essentially asking them to die a little. You are asking them to kill a piece of themselves so you can feel right. And then you are surprised when they resist. You are surprised when they become defensive. You are surprised when they refuse to change their mind despite your irrefutable evidence. The evidence was never the issue. The identity was always the issue. This is what Machiavelli understood about human nature. Men are so simple, he wrote, and so subject to present necessities, that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. But the reverse is also true. He who seeks to convince through argument will always find that men resist not because they lack understanding, but because understanding threatens their survival. The way around this is elegant. Do not attack their position. Do not try to convince them. Do not argue. Instead, find a way to make your idea feel like their idea. This is the deepest secret of influence. People do not resist their own ideas. People do not argue against their own positions. If you can plant a seed and let them believe they grew the flower, they will defend that idea with the same ferocity they would have used to attack it. How do you do this? I will tell you exactly how. Instead of arguing, ask questions. Not confrontational questions. Not questions designed to trap them. Genuine questions. Curious questions. Questions that lead them to examine their own beliefs. When they discover the flaws themselves, they do not feel attacked. They feel enlightened, and they associate that enlightenment with you. You become the person who helped them see more clearly, not the enemy who threatened their identity. Type in the comments right now, I ask, I do not argue. This is the mark of someone who has absorbed this lesson. This is the sign that you understand what most people never grasp. Let me see your commitment. Lesson 4. The fourth principle reveals the strategic advantage of apparent agreement. When someone states a position you disagree with, you have three choices. You can argue against them, which we have established is almost always a mistake. You can say nothing, which is better but can seem cold or disengaged. Or you can do something that seems cowardly but is actually genius. You can agree with them. Not completely. Not in a way that compromises your integrity. But partially, conditionally. You can find the kernel of truth in what they are saying and acknowledge it. Watch what happens when you do this. Their defenses drop. Their brain stops preparing for battle. They feel heard and validated. They become open. They start to like you. And a person who likes you is infinitely easier to influence than a person who sees you as an enemy. Machiavelli observed this in diplomatic negotiations. The most skilled diplomats never started by stating their demands. They started by acknowledging the validity of the other side's concerns. They made the other side feel understood. They built rapport before they built arguments. And often, after enough rapport was built, no arguments were necessary at all. The other side simply wanted to help them. This is manipulation, you might think. This is dishonest. Is it though? Is acknowledging that someone else's perspective has validity really dishonest? Is recognizing that another human being has reasons for believing what they believe really manipulation? Or is it simply accurate? Because here is the truth. No matter how wrong someone seems, they have reasons for their position. Those reasons make sense to them. Those reasons are connected to their experiences and values. When you acknowledge this, you are not lying. You are simply seeing the full picture instead of only your corner of it. The man who can agree before he persuades is the man who controls conversations. The man who must always show his disagreement is the man who loses control before the conversation even begins. Which man do you want to be? That is not a rhetorical question. I want you to decide right now. Type in the comments, I control conversations. Or type, I am controlled by conversations. Let us see who has really understood this lesson. Lesson 5. The fifth principle takes us deeper into the psychology of silence. When you remain silent during a disagreement, something magical happens. The other person cannot read you. They do not know if you agree or disagree. They do not know if you are planning something or simply uninterested. This uncertainty is profoundly uncomfortable for them. And in their discomfort, they reveal themselves. They keep talking. They over-explain. They try to get a reaction from you. They expose their fears, their insecurities, their true motivations. All because you said nothing. Machiavelli wrote about this in his discussions of political strategy. The prince who conceals his intentions controls the game. The prince who reveals his intentions gives his enemies a target. Arguments reveal intentions. Arguments show what you care about. Arguments tell others exactly how to manipulate you. But silence conceals. Silence protects. Silence maintains the mystery that power requires. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loud ones. Not the ones who dominate every conversation. The truly powerful ones. The ones who seem to control outcomes without visible effort. Watch them closely. Notice how little they argue. Notice how comfortable they are with silence. Notice how they let others fill the space while they observe and calculate. This is not passive. This is the most active form of control. They are gathering information while revealing nothing. They are mapping the psychological terrain while remaining invisible on that terrain themselves. They are preparing moves that others will never see coming because others have no idea what they are actually thinking. Here is a technique the powerful use that will transform your conversations. When someone says something you disagree with, instead of arguing, simply say, "That is interesting." Then say nothing. Watch them squirm. Watch them try to explain further. Watch them reveal more and more as they try to understand your reaction. You will learn more in those moments of silence than you would in an hour of argument. And you will maintain complete control while they struggle to regain it. I want you to try this in the next week. Just once. When someone says something you would normally argue against, just say "That is interesting" and then go silent. Then come back to this video and tell me in the comments what happened. I guarantee the results will shock you. Lesson 6. The sixth principle addresses the illusion of intellectual victory. You have probably had this experience. You argued with someone and completely dismantled their position. Every point they made, you countered. Every fact they cited, you corrected. By the end, they had nothing left to say. You won. Completely. Decisively. But then something strange happened. Nothing changed. They did not come to you later acknowledging your brilliance. They did not adopt your position. They did not tell others how right you were. In fact, if anything, they seemed more committed to their original position than before. What happened? You ran into what psychologists call the backfire effect. When people are confronted with evidence that contradicts their beliefs, they often believe their original position even more strongly. Not less. The argument you thought you won actually strengthened their conviction. And this makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Humans are not designed to update their beliefs based on logic. Humans are designed to protect their tribes and their identities. When you attack someone's belief, their brain interprets this as an attack on their tribe. And their response is to become more loyal to that tribe, not less. This is why political arguments almost never change anyone's mind. This is why religious debates go in circles forever. This is why online arguments achieve nothing except raising everyone's blood pressure. The mechanism of argument itself is flawed. It activates exactly the psychological defenses that make change impossible. Knowing this, the powerful choose a different path. They do not try to defeat beliefs. They try to make their desired beliefs more attractive. They do not argue against what you think. They make you want to think differently. They use stories instead of statistics. They use emotions instead of evidence. They use identity appeals instead of intellectual appeals. Is this manipulation? Yes. But here is the question you should ask. Would you rather be the manipulator or the manipulated? Would you rather understand these techniques and use them consciously, or remain ignorant and have them used against you? Because they are being used against you right now. By advertisers. By politicians. By media companies. By everyone who has studied human psychology and decided to apply it. You can be outraged by this and remain a victim. Or you can learn and become powerful. The choice is yours. Lesson 7. The seventh principle shows you how to win without fighting. In the art of war, Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Machiavelli understood this in the context of personal power. The supreme art of influence is to change minds without arguing. How do you do this? Let me give you the complete method. First, understand that people are constantly watching for threats. When they detect a threat, their defenses activate and change becomes impossible. Your goal is to never be perceived as a threat. This means no arguing, no correcting, no demonstrating superiority. You must approach others as a curious learner, not a knowing teacher. Even when you are the expert. Even when you know they are wrong. Especially then. Second, find common ground before addressing differences. There is always common ground. Always. Even with your worst enemy, there are values you share. Maybe you both love your country. Maybe you both care about your families. Maybe you both want to be respected. Find that common ground and build on it. Once they see you as an ally rather than an enemy, their defenses lower. And only when their defenses are lowered can real influence occur. Third, use questions instead of statements. Every statement you make can be argued against. But questions are different. Questions make people think. Questions guide attention. Questions can lead someone to discover exactly what you want them to discover while believing they discovered it themselves. A master influencer can conduct an entire conversation using only questions and leave the other person completely convinced of a position they never explicitly stated. Fourth, play the long game. Most people want to win arguments right now. They want the immediate satisfaction of being right. But immediate satisfaction creates lasting enemies. The master plays for lasting results, even if it means temporary losses. Let them think they won today. Let them feel superior right now. Meanwhile, you are positioning for a victory they will never see coming. A victory so complete that by the time they realize what happened, it will be too late to resist. Pause right now and think about someone in your life who always argues with you. Someone who triggers you. Someone who makes you want to prove them wrong. Got them in your mind? Good. Now I want you to make a decision. You will never argue with this person again. Not because you are weak. Because you are powerful. You will smile when they provoke you. You will ask curious questions when they state their ridiculous opinions. You will agree partially and then redirect. And over time, you will watch them become confused by your new response. They will not know how to handle you anymore. Their provocations will lose their power. And slowly, almost without realizing it, they will start to respect you in a way they never did before. Try this for 1 month. Then come back and tell me in the comments what happened. I promise you will have a story worth sharing. Lesson 8. The 8th principle exposes the hidden cost of being right. Every time you win an argument, you pay a tax. This tax is not visible. It does not appear on any statement. But it is real, and it compounds over time. The tax is paid in relationship equity. Every argument you win depletes the goodwill in your relationships. Every time you prove someone wrong, they like you a little less. Every time you demonstrate your intellectual superiority, they trust you a little less. And there is no argument important enough to justify this cost. None. Because here is what matters in life. Not being right. Not winning debates. Not proving your intelligence. What matters is the quality of your relationships. What matters is being surrounded by people who love you and want to help you succeed. What matters is having allies when you face difficulties and challenges when life gets hard. And every argument you win pushes these things further away. Machiavelli understood that princes need allies more than they need to be right. He saw leaders who were brilliant but alone. He saw leaders who were mediocre but surrounded by loyal supporters. And the mediocre leaders with supporters won almost every time. Because power is not an individual sport. Power is a team sport. And you cannot build a team by defeating everyone in arguments. The most powerful people I have studied share a common characteristic. They make others feel good. Not through flattery. Not through dishonesty. Through genuine appreciation. Through deep listening. Through the simple act of not making others feel wrong. People want to be around them. People want to help them. People want to see them succeed. And this creates a compound effect that no individual brilliance could ever match. Meanwhile, the brilliant arguer sits alone, correct about everything, loved by no one, wondering why their obvious superiority has not translated into success. The answer is simple. They valued being right over being connected. And in a world run by humans, connection always beats correctness. Right now, I want you to think about your 5 most important relationships. Your spouse or partner, your closest friend, your most valuable colleague, your parent or sibling, a mentor or advisor. Now ask yourself honestly, how often do you argue with these people? How often do you need to prove you are right in these relationships? How often do you choose being correct over being close? If you are honest, the answer might disturb you. Because most of us argue most with the people we care about most. Most of us spend our relationship equity on meaningless debates about things that will not matter in a week. Most of us sacrifice connection for correctness without even realizing we are making a trade. This stops today. Right now. Make a commitment to yourself. In your 5 most important relationships, you will not argue for the next 30 days. No matter what they say, no matter how wrong they are, you will ask questions. You will seek to understand. You will find common ground. But you will not argue. After 30 days, notice what happens to those relationships. Notice how people treat you differently. Notice how much easier life becomes when you stop fighting battles that never needed to be fought. Type in the comments, "My relationships matter more than being right." This is the mark of wisdom. This is the sign of someone who truly understands power. Lesson 9. The 9th principle reveals the ultimate secret. The reason most people cannot stop arguing is not because they love truth. It is because they are addicted to certainty. Being right feels good. Gives a dopamine hit. It confirms that you understand the world. It provides the illusion of control in a chaotic universe. Arguments are really about chasing that feeling over and over again. But here is the paradox. The more you need to be right, the less powerful you become. Because needing to be right is a weakness that others can exploit. They can bait you into arguments. They can distract you with debates. They can use your ego against you by challenging positions they know you will defend. The truly powerful have transcended the need for certainty. They are comfortable not knowing. They are comfortable being wrong. They are comfortable with ambiguity and complexity and shades of gray. This is not weakness. This is the highest strength. Because when you do not need to be right, you cannot be manipulated through that need. When you are not addicted to certainty, no one can use that addiction against you. You become unpredictable, untriggerable, uncontrollable. Machiavelli described the ideal prince as one who adapts to circumstances rather than demanding circumstances adapt to him. The man who must always be right is demanding that reality conform to his beliefs. But reality does not care about his beliefs. Reality will do what it does. And the man who cannot adapt, who cannot be wrong, who cannot update his thinking, will be destroyed by a reality that refuses to accommodate his ego. Meanwhile, the flexible man survives. The adaptable man thrives. The man who holds his beliefs lightly and adjusts based on evidence accumulates power while others accumulate only certainty. Ask yourself honestly, are you addicted to being right? Does being wrong feel like a threat to your survival? Do you find yourself in arguments defending positions you are not even sure you believe, simply because you cannot bear to lose? If yes, recognize this as the vulnerability it is. Every addiction is a vulnerability. Every need that cannot be controlled controls you. The path to power requires releasing this addiction. It requires becoming comfortable with uncertainty. It requires valuing effectiveness over correctness, results over being right. Lesson 10. The 10th principle shows you what to do instead of arguing. You might be thinking, if I should not argue, what should I do when someone is wrong? How do I correct mistakes? How do I share information that contradicts what others believe? How do I have any influence at all? Here is the answer. You tell stories. Stories bypass every defense that arguments trigger. When you tell a story, You are not attacking anyone's beliefs. You are simply sharing an experience. And experiences cannot be argued with. If I tell you that apples are healthier than oranges, you can argue with me. You can cite studies. You can challenge my evidence. You can disagree with my conclusion. But if I tell you about a friend who switched from oranges to apples and noticed improved health, you cannot argue. It is a story. It happened. You might be skeptical about the conclusion, but you cannot attack the narrative itself. Stories are how humans have transmitted beliefs for thousands of years. Before writing, before formal arguments, before logic was even codified, stories were there. And our brains are wired to receive stories without resistance. The master influencer uses stories instead of statistics. They use examples instead of explanations. They use narratives instead of arguments. And people absorb their messages without ever feeling attacked. Think about the great persuaders of history. Religious leaders, political revolutionaries, marketing geniuses. They all understood this. Jesus taught in parables, not arguments. Politicians use personal anecdotes, not policy papers. Advertisers show scenarios, not specifications. If you want to change minds without arguing, become a collector of stories. Every time you learn something valuable, find a story that illustrates it. Every time you want to share information, wrap it in narrative. Every time you feel the urge to argue, ask yourself what story could make this point without confrontation. I'm going to share a story right now that illustrates everything we have discussed. A student once came to a wise master and demanded that the master prove the existence of truth. The student was brilliant. He had prepared arguments and counter-arguments. He was ready for a philosophical battle that would establish his intellectual dominance. The master listened to the student's demand. Then he said nothing. He simply picked up a cup of tea and began drinking. The student waited and waited. Finally, he asked again, "Will you prove to me that truth exists?" The master put down his tea and said, "You just drank tea with me. That happened. Is that not true?" The student was confused. "That is not what I meant. I want philosophical truth. Abstract truth. Truth with a capital T." The master smiled. "You want to argue about abstractions while ignoring the reality in front of you. You want to debate concepts while the actual truth sits in a teacup. The most profound truths are not argued. They are experienced. Go experience life and stop looking for things to debate." The student was initially frustrated. He wanted an argument. He wanted to test his intellectual skills. But over time, he understood. The master had taught him something no argument could convey. That the addiction to debate was obscuring his vision of what was actually true. That his need to be right was preventing him from experiencing rightness. Lesson 11. The 11th principle addresses what happens when you must confront. Sometimes avoiding arguments is not possible. Sometimes you must correct dangerous misinformation. Sometimes you must stand against harmful beliefs. What then? Even in these situations, the master does not argue. The master confronts differently. Here is how. First, separate the person from the position. Attack the idea, never the individual. Make it absolutely clear that you respect them even as you challenge what they believe. This is hard. It requires discipline. But it is the only way to confront without creating enemies. Second, use the word and instead of but. When you say "I understand your point but," everything before the but is deleted. They only hear disagreement. When you say "I understand your point and here is another perspective," both ideas coexist. They feel heard even as you introduce contradictory information. Third, always provide an exit. People will not change their minds if changing means admitting they were stupid or wrong. Give them a way to change while saving face. Say something like, "I used to believe the same thing until I encountered this information. Now they can change by simply encountering the same information you did. They were not wrong. They just had not seen what you saw yet." Fourth, make it about discovery, not defeat. Frame the conversation as two people exploring an idea together rather than two people fighting for victory. Say let us figure this out together instead of let me show you why you are wrong. The outcome might be the same, but the relationship will be completely different. Fifth, know when to walk away. Some people cannot be reached. Some beliefs are too deeply tied to identity. Some situations are not worth the energy. The master recognizes these situations quickly and withdraws gracefully. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every wrong needs to be corrected. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply to leave the game entirely. Lesson 12. The 12th principle brings us to the transformation of identity. Everything I have shared with you today requires more than technique. It requires a fundamental shift in who you are. You must become someone for whom arguments are simply not attractive. You must become someone who does not feel the pull of being right. This is not about suppression. It is about transcendence. Here is the shift in identity I am inviting you to make. Stop seeing yourself as someone who has opinions that need to be defended. Start seeing yourself as someone who is genuinely curious about what is true. Stop seeing disagreement as a threat. Start seeing it as information. Stop seeing other people as opponents. Start seeing them as windows into different ways of understanding reality. This shift is profound. Change is not just how you argue but how you think. When you are genuinely curious, you do not need to defend. You want to explore. When disagreement is information, you welcome it rather than resisting it. When others are windows rather than opponents, you approach them with fascination rather than hostility. I struggled with this myself. For years, I was addicted to being right. I would argue with anyone about anything, and I was good at it. I won debates. I silenced opponents. I left conversations feeling intellectually superior. But I was also lonely. I was also stuck. I was also surrounded by people who resented me and avoided me. The transformation came when I realized that my intelligence was actually my biggest limitation. It had become a weapon I used against others. And every time I used it, I cut myself off from connection and growth. When I stopped arguing, something unexpected happened. I started learning. For the first time in years, I actually changed my mind about things. I discovered that many of my certainties were wrong. I found wisdom in people I had previously dismissed. My world became larger and richer because I was no longer defending tiny territories within it. And perhaps most surprisingly, my influence increased. People started seeking my advice. People started wanting to collaborate with me. People started respecting me not for my intelligence but for my wisdom. And the difference between intelligence and wisdom is exactly what we have been discussing. Intelligence wins arguments. Wisdom makes arguments unnecessary. Right now, if you have watched this far, you are not average. Average viewers clicked away long ago. They wanted easy entertainment, not profound transformation. But you stayed. You listened. You absorbed. This tells me something about you. It tells me you are ready for real power. Not the fake power of winning arguments. Real power. The power of influence without force. The power of control without conflict. The power of getting what you want while others feel good about giving it to you. Subscribe to this channel now if you have not already. This is where we explore these truths. This is where we go deeper than surface-level advice. This is where we learn the secrets that the powerful guard carefully. Join this community. You have found your people. Lesson 13. The 13th principle takes us beyond the personal to the strategic. In any organization, in any social structure, in any system of power, the person who argues loses influence. This is not just about individual relationships. This is about your position in the larger game. Watch what happens in meetings when someone argues. They might make good points. They might even be right. But notice how the energy in the room shifts. Notice how others start to see them as difficult or combative. Notice how decisions somehow get made without their input, even though they were the most vocal participant. Now watch the person who asks questions instead of making statements. Who agrees with parts of every position. Who synthesizes what others say rather than attacking it. They speak less. They argue never. But mysteriously, their preferences seem to become the group's preferences. Their ideas seem to become the group's ideas. They are seen as collaborative and wise rather than difficult and arrogant. This is not mystical. This is simple social dynamics. Humans are tribal creatures. We instinctively trust those who seem to be with us and distrust those who seem to be against us. Every argument positions you as against someone. Every agreement positions you as with them. The person who never argues is never positioned as an opponent. They float above the conflicts. They are seen as neutral, trustworthy, wise. And when decisions need to be made, their voice carries disproportionate weight. Machiavelli wrote extensively about how princes should manage their courts. And one of his key insights was that the prince should never take sides in disputes between his subordinates. The moment the prince takes a side, he makes an enemy of the other side. But if he remains above the dispute, both sides seek his favor. Both sides try to win him to their position. And he can then choose whatever outcome serves him best while maintaining the loyalty of both parties. You are the prince of your own life. The disputes you encounter are opportunities for this kind of positioning. When colleagues argue, do not take sides. Ask questions. Seek to understand both perspectives. Help them find common ground. You will emerge as the wise mediator rather than a combatant. And your power will grow while theirs diminishes through conflict. Lesson 14. The 14th principle shows you the deepest layer. Why do we really argue? It is not about truth. It is not about correctness. It is about fear. At the root of every argument is a fear that if we are wrong, we are worthless. Our egos cannot tolerate being incorrect because we have tied our value as humans to being right. This is a fundamental error. Your value has nothing to do with whether you are right about any particular topic. You are valuable because you exist, because you experience, because you contribute to the world simply by being in it. When you truly internalize this, the compulsion to argue dissolves. You can be wrong about things and still be valuable. You can change your mind and still be worthy. You can let others have their beliefs and still maintain your own sense of self. This is freedom. This is power. This is the state that the greatest masters of influence operate from. They are not trying to protect their egos because their egos do not need protection. They are not threatened by disagreement because their value does not depend on agreement. They move through the world with a lightness that comes from not carrying the burden of always needing to be right. And paradoxically, this makes them more persuasive. People sense when someone is arguing from fear versus speaking from peace. They resist the former and lean toward the latter. The person who does not need you to agree is far more compelling than the person who desperately needs your validation. Take a moment right now. Think about your deepest fear related to being wrong. Is it that people will think you are stupid? Is it that you will lose status? Is it that you will be exposed as a fraud? Whatever it is, recognize it. This fear has been driving your arguments. This fear has been stealing your power. And this fear is based on a lie. The lie that your worth depends on your correctness. You are worthy exactly as you are. Wrong about many things. Right about some. Uncertain about most. Your value is inherent, not earned through being right. When you really believe this, arguments will seem absurd. Why fight so hard to protect something that was never at risk? Lesson 15. The 15th and final principle brings everything together into a way of being. The master of not arguing is not using a technique. They have become a different kind of person. They are genuinely curious rather than defensive. They find other perspectives fascinating rather than threatening. They know that their understanding is always partial and welcome information that expands it. They love truth more than they love being right. This transformation is available to you. Not through effort but through release. You do not have to add anything. You have to let go. Let go of the need to be right. Let go of the fear of being wrong. Let go of the addiction to certainty. Let go of the belief that arguments can be won. When you let go, something beautiful happens. Space opens up. Space for connection. Space for learning. Space for influence that does not require force. Space for relationships that are not damaged by constant combat. In that space, you become what Machiavelli truly envisioned. Not a manipulator, not a schemer, but someone who understands human nature so deeply that they can navigate it without violence. Someone who gets what they want by creating genuine value rather than winning battles. Someone who achieves power not over others but with others. This is the path I am walking. This is the path I invite you to join. Not because I have mastered it. I have not. But because walking it together, we can support each other. We can remind each other when we fall back into old patterns. We can share stories of what we discover along the way. As we end this journey together, I want to leave you with a practice. For the next 7 days, keep count of every argument you avoid. Every time you feel the urge to prove someone wrong and choose not to, make a note. Every time you ask a question instead of making a statement, record it. Every time you find common ground instead of emphasizing difference, acknowledge it. At the end of 7 days, look at your list. Notice how many arguments you did not have. Notice how many conflicts you prevented. Notice how many relationships you protected. And notice how your life feels different because of these choices. Then come back here and share your experience in the comments. Let us build evidence together that this path works. Let us prove through our collective experience that Machiavelli's secret is real. You came to this video thinking it would teach you a trick. A technique for winning arguments instantly. And in a way, it did. The trick is to not argue at all. That is how you win instantly. Because the moment you refuse to play the game is over. And when the game is over, only one person is left standing. The one who was wise enough not to play. Now before you leave, I have to remind you of something. When this video started, I told you about my ex-girlfriend who said I would fail. Who said nobody would subscribe to this channel. You have stayed until the end. You have absorbed wisdom that most people will never encounter. You are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Subscribe now. Prove her wrong with me. And more importantly, join a community that sees the world as it truly is. Drop your location in the comments so I can see how far this message has traveled. Let me know what insight hit you the hardest. Let me know which lesson you will implement first. The truly powerful do not announce their power. They do not prove it in arguments. They simply move through the world with quiet certainty, achieving their aims while others exhaust themselves in pointless battles. You now have the knowledge. The question is whether you have the discipline to apply it. I believe you do. I would not have spent this time with you otherwise. Go forward. Stop arguing. Start winning. And remember, in the game of power, the only battles worth fighting are the ones you can win without fighting at all. Until next time, remain silent. Remain watchful. Remain powerful. The world belongs to those who understand its true operating system. You are now among them. Use this knowledge wisely. And never forget, the greatest victory is the victory that requires no battle.